Okay, so picture an orthopedic surgeon, right? At work. What comes to mind?
Intense precision, I imagine. Really deep technical
But
skill.
yeah, exactly. Focusing on the physical repair, bones and joints. You picture the scalpels, the drills.
Almost like superhuman dexterity.
Totally. But what if I told you that, well, for many surgeons, the most crucial tools aren't those physical things at all?
Something invisible.
Exactly. Something happening purely in their mind. Today, we're kind of pulling back the curtain on this hidden mind game,
Right.
the stuff that happens behind every successful surgery. It's profound, but really rarely discussed.
Yeah, absolutely. And this deep dive, it really digs into something you just don't hear about much.
Mm.
That mental game, the emotional intelligence, and the really complex ways surgeons actually make decisions.
Hmm.
We've gone through quite a bit of recent research here, trying to uncover how they really operate under pressure,
Okay.
and also how they think about training the non-technical side, the stuff beyond the scalpel.
Right.
So our mission, really, is to pull out some surprising facts, some insights that might make you rethink what expertise looks like, honestly, in any tough field.
Okay, so if precision is so key, what's the biggest internal hurdle for these surgeons?
One thing that comes up consistently is anxiety.
Anxiety, really.
Yeah. Our sources talk about how even the most focused minds can sometimes be like uh, monkey minds,
Monkey minds, what does that mean?
easily distracted, prone to dwelling on things, ruminating, and frankly, it can make them unhappy.
Wow. And that's not just personal, right? It affects.
It affects everything, their well-being, sure,
Mm.
but also patient outcomes, critically.
Right. So this is where things like mental training come in.
Exactly. This is where mental skills training, MST, and emotional intelligence, EI, become so important.
Okay, define those a bit for us. MST is.
MST is really about keeping your head clear, your focus sharp, your hands steady when things get stressful.
Like an athlete.
Precisely. Think of an elite athlete visualizing success, or maybe a pilot staying calm in turbulence. It's that kind of mental discipline.
Okay. And EI, emotional intelligence.
That's more about understanding and managing emotions, both your own, like fear or frustration, and those of others.
Ah, so reading the room, connecting with patients.
Exactly. Or leading the surgical team effectively when the pressure's on. And look, these aren't just soft skills.
Right, they sound pretty fundamental.
They are. The sources show they're fundamental for performance, clinical, and academic. They influence everything from the doctor-patient relationship right through to teamwork in the OR.
Okay, now here's the bit I found really interesting. Despite all these clear benefits, you're saying this stuff isn't routinely taught in surgical training.
Largely no, not formally integrated in the way technical skills are.
That seems wild. But what do surgeons themselves think? Are they interested?
That's the kicker. They're incredibly receptive. We looked at a survey of UK orthopedic surgeons. Staggering results.
Like what?
Okay, get this. 95% wanted more MST. 93% thought everyone should get it, ideally before they even become registrars.
Wow, almost everyone.
Yeah, and 94% felt MST was useful on top of technical skills. They directly linked good mental skills to good patient outcomes,
So they see the value, clearly.
overwhelmingly. But here's the paradox we found.
Okay.
While they want the training, only about 29% felt confident in how they currently use mental skills.
Huh, so they want it, but don't feel good at it.
Right. But wait, it gets stranger. Almost all of them, nearly 99%, reported already using mental skills at work.
What? How does that work?
Either every single day, that was about 29%, or at least most days, another 70%.
So they are using them, but informally, self-taught.
That's what it strongly suggests, an informal, maybe even unconscious application of these critical skills.
It's like finding out elite athletes are secretly practicing meditation because their coaches aren't teaching it.
Kind of, yeah. That's the disconnect we saw in the research, a huge gap.
Okay, wow. So there's this massive informal learning curve happening. What about the next generation then, the residents coming up?
Yeah, good question. We look at a study focusing on emotional intelligence EI in Canadian orthopedic surgery residents.
Yeah, what did it find?
The results were, well, pretty striking. The average EI score wasn't very high, around 86 out of 145.
Hmm.
And maybe more importantly, only 10% of these residents were considered actually competent in EI based on the measures used.
Only 10%. That seems low for people heading into such a demanding, people-focused profession.
It does raise questions, doesn't it, about how prepared new surgeons are for the let's call them non-cognitive
The
demands.
stuff beyond the technical.
Exactly. Which is becoming more and more critical now with complex cases, team-based care,
Right.
all that.
Yeah, you need those skills to navigate it all.
Absolutely. Imagine trying to lead a team or comfort a really distressed family or just have a tough conversation with a patient if your EI isn't well developed.
Right. Did the study mention anything else? Any patterns?
It did note some differences, like younger residents tended to score a bit higher on EI.
Interesting.
And there was a difference based on race, with Caucasian residents scoring higher in that particular sample. But, the study was careful to say we shouldn't draw firm conclusions there.
Small sample size, maybe.
Likely, yeah. It mainly just highlights areas we need to understand better.
Okay, so we've talked about the surgeon's inner world, the mental skills, the emotional side. But what about decision making? Especially when things aren't clear-cut.
Ah, yes. That's a whole other fascinating area.
Because surgery seems like it should be clear-cut, right? Follow the evidence.
You'd think so. But orthopedic surgery, interestingly, is known for resisting standardization to some extent.
Resisting it. Why?
Well, our deep dive shows it's complicated. Decisions are often described as this dynamic process, almost like medical brokering.
Medical brokering. What's that?
It means surgeons are constantly juggling, prioritizing different factors, different drivers, in a way that's really flexible and depends heavily on the specific context.
So it's not just about opening the textbook.
Definitely not just the textbook.
Uh-huh.
They might be weighing, say, a patient's age against the latest research, or thinking about hospital resources, or even just their own gut feeling based on experience, all at once.
That sounds incredibly complex to balance.
It is. And our sources actually introduce a model to help understand it. They call it the linchpin model of decision-making.
Linchpin model. Okay, what are the key parts?
It points to two really crucial mediating factors that influence how decisions get made.
Okay.
The first is surgeon identity.
Surgeon identity, like their personality type.
Sort of, yeah. Imagine surgeons falling into different categories based on their approach. You've got your mavericks.
Maverick sounds like trouble, maybe.
Well, they have this really unbounded confidence. They often mistrust scientific evidence, preferring to judge things for themselves.
Okay. Who else?
Then there are paragons. They're more about the gold standard, established techniques, evidence-based practice.
Following the rules more.
You could say that. And then innovators, the visionaries, always testing the boundaries, pushing the specialty forward.
So a maverick. How does their identity affect decisions?
Well, a maverick, for example, might feel they don't need an RCT to tell them something works. They trust their own judgment, their own experience.
So that identity itself filters how they even look at evidence.
Exactly. It significantly shapes how they value it and apply it. It's a powerful factor.
Wow. Okay, so surgeon identity is one linchpin. What's the other?
The other is organizational capacity.
Meaning the hospital, the resources.
Yeah, basically the way we do things around here. It includes resources, sure, but also the culture, the established practices, even the sort of legacy knowledge within that specific institution.
So different hospitals might lead to different decisions, even for the same problem.
Absolutely. We found examples where, say, university teaching hospitals might really foster that evidence-based culture,
Right.
whereas maybe a specialist center might actually legitimize relying more on that innate feel of surgery, that craft element.
And resources matter, too.
Hugely. Even something like bed shortages. One source mentioned a Delhi hospital where that could actively bias decisions about who gets surgery and when.
Okay, this really brings up a critical question then. What kind of knowledge actually drives these decisions most of the time? Is it the formal evidence or something else?
That's a really central point from our sources. And the answer is, well, it's often not the formal codified knowledge.
Not the guidelines, not the big studies.
They played a role, but often a surprisingly limited one in the day-to-day reality of orthopedics.
So what do they rely on?
There seems to be a really strong preference for informal experiential knowledge, implicit knowledge.
Like gut feeling, clinical intuition.
Exactly those things. Surgeons in these studies often talk about surgery as a craft specialty, sometimes even an act of faith.
An act of faith, that's strong language.
It is, and it allows them, in their view, to reject a sort of one-size-fits-all approach from guidelines.
So they can tailor things.
Yeah, tailor decisions to what one surgeon fascinatingly called the personality of the fracture.
The personality of the fracture. I love that. But isn't there a paradox here? If they dismiss formal evidence, like RCTs,
Yeah.
but then rely on, say, watching a colleague or reading case reports. Isn't that weaker evidence?
That's exactly the paradox highlighted. Surgeons might critique randomized controlled trials for not being applicable, maybe too rigid,
Okay.
yet they'll often place a lot of confidence in just observing a colleague's success rates or in those single case reports, which are essentially anecdotes.
So the issue isn't always the quality of the evidence that's out there?
It suggests it's not just about the quality, it's also about how the surgical community itself interprets evidence, what it values, what it accepts
Yeah.
as legitimate knowledge within their practice.
It's more about the culture of evidence within surgery.
Precisely. It seems deeply ingrained.
Okay, so it's not just the surgeon's mind or the hospital system. It sounds like the whole environment matters.
Yeah.
What other influences did the sources point to?
Oh, absolutely. It's a really rich tapestry of influences. For instance, patient factors. Huge.
Like their medical history?
Yes, age, other conditions, comorbidities,
Hmm.
but also how patients convey their pain or their expectations.
How they convey it.
Yeah. Surgeons apparently categorize patients sometimes like, is this person looking for a quick fix? Or are they maybe catastrophizing their pain?
That sounds judgmental almost.
It can sound that way, but managing those expectations is described as a major challenge, especially, as one source put it, in a litigious society.
Ah, the fear of getting sued.
That plays a role. And while shared decision-making is the ideal, it's often really difficult because the patient's priorities might be very different from the surgeon's clinical assessment.
Right. Okay, so patient factors are big. What else? Systemic things, costs.
Yep. Managerial knowledge comes into play. The actual cost of services, implants, drugs.
Mm.
That's an active driver.
Money talks, basically.
It does. There's even talk of competition between, say, hospital managers trying to cut costs and private companies pushing new, maybe expensive technologies.
And the surgeons are caught in the middle.
Sometimes. Or sometimes those maverick surgeons might specifically adopt a new expensive tech because it reinforces their status, regardless of the cost-effectiveness evidence.
Wow. Okay, what else influences decisions?
There's the whole socialization of knowledge. Where does legitimate surgical knowledge actually come from?
You mean, who do they trust?
Exactly. Often, it comes from within the specialty. Trusted colleagues, mentors, anecdotal experience passed down.
Like an apprenticeship model, almost.
Very much so. And this can create a really deeply embedded community, sometimes described as a bit elitist, that might lead to mistrusting evidence that comes from outside that circle.
If we didn't discover it, it might not be right for us.
Something like that sentiment, yeah.
Okay. Any other big ones?
Well, there are broader cultural, normative, and political influences. Sometimes surgeons feel a pressure to actually operate, maybe because of cultural expectations. Surgeons operate, that's what they do. Or that perceived threat of medico-legal challenges if they don't operate.
So inaction can feel risky, too.
It can. And think about the COVID-19 pandemic. There was often no clear evidence for how to manage surgical patients initially.
Right. Total uncertainty.
So surgeons relied heavily on colleagues, just for comfort and reassurance, aiming for what was described as least worst decision-making. Peer support became critical.
Just trying to find the safest path in the fog.
Exactly. And finally, we can't ignore training and education itself.
How so?
Surgical training is often described almost like learning a surgical philosophy. It indoctrinates surgeons into specific ways of thinking and doing things.
So you learn the way of your mentors.
Precisely. And this builds up a cumulative comfort, with practices learned during that intense training period, which naturally reinforces relying on that implicit, learned knowledge rather than constantly revisiting external evidence.
Okay, so we've unpacked a whole lot here. The surgeon's mind, the organizational factors, the culture. What's the big takeaway for actually improving things, making surgery safer, more evidence-based?
Well, the sources really point to this significant disconnect, don't they?
Yeah, surgeons know they need these mental and emotional skills.
Right, they want them. But the existing decision-making culture often defaults back to that informal experience, that craft knowledge, sometimes over the formal evidence.
So bridging that gap seems key.
It does. And what's promising is the growing recognition of non-technical skills for surgeons, or not SS.
Not SS. What's that?
It's basically a framework, a structured way to actually observe, rate, and give feedback on those cognitive and social skills we've been talking about.
Like teamwork, leadership.
Exactly. Situation awareness, communication, decision-making itself. It's a move to formalize these things.
Because mistakes aren't always about shaky hands.
Precisely. The not-SS approach acknowledges that adverse events often stem from these behavioral aspects, these non-technical failures, not just a slip of the scalpel.
So it sounds like what's really needed is a cultural shift, driven by the surgeons themselves.
That seems to be the core conclusion from one of our key sources.
Hmm.
To truly improve evidence-based practice in a field like orthopedics, the push has to come from within.
Not imposed from the outside.
Right. It means surgeons need to be involved in co-creating the research agendas, the implementation strategies. Things need to be tailored to surgery.
In a way that doesn't feel like it's attacking their identity or devaluing their craft knowledge.
Exactly. It's about seeing surgical decision-making not as one simple thing you can fix with a guideline, but as a complex intervention itself.
Which needs complex, multifaceted strategies to improve.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
Not just isolated projects, but a sustained effort.
Okay. We have definitely unpacked a lot today about the mind of the surgeon,
Yeah.
from that need for mental skills and emotional intelligence, right through to how complex decisions actually get made in the operating room, or even before. It's really clear that human factors, personality, culture, team dynamics play this enormous role, sometimes maybe even overshadowing the formal scientific evidence.
Indeed. We've seen how this field, which we think of as relying purely on precision and technical mastery, is really grappling with these deeply human elements.
Judgment, emotion, teamwork.
Yeah, it reveals a much richer and maybe more complex picture of expertise than we usually imagine.
So, for you listening to this deep dive, maybe consider this. If a field as technically rigorous as orthopedic surgery is increasingly recognizing how critical these other skills are.
Skills like mindfulness, EI, non-technical communication.
Right. Skills that are often learned informally that resist easy measurement or traditional evidence. If they see how vital these are, what might that suggest about their importance in your own demanding professional world, whatever that might be?
Yeah, that's a great point.
And maybe ask yourself, what hidden mental pillars, like the ones we discussed today, might you need to examine in your own work to really perform at your best?